Today is an extremely special day. I am so excited to be here with Lindsay Jensen, Senior Director of Partner Strategy and Growth for Impartner. I was so excited to meet you when I was speaking at Women of the Channel East in New York City. I keep hearing how amazing you are. I really appreciate your time to share your wisdom. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I am flattered and honored that you've asked me to do this. So thank you.
Of course. So before we jump in and you share some golden nuggets of wisdom of how you've been able to build amazing, deep, and authentic relationships and consistently boosted your bottom line at Impartner, I would love to know, what either inspired you to greatness earlier on when you first started your career, or was there anything difficult that also inspired you to greatness because you wanted to overcome it?
Definitely. I know everyone has rough childhoods, right? We spend our adult lives getting over what we went through in childhood. But I think there are a couple things really that help define me as a person and help me to get where I am today. And I think first and foremost, I had parents that were divorced that couldn't give unconditional love to me. It was always, you either had to be like me or the other parent. It was a tug of war. So I always felt like I was never enough, challenged in that way, no matter what I did. But I was always trying to be what they wanted me to be, which is very painful to not be your authentic self. I also moved. So coupled with that, we moved 13 times before I graduated high school. And so hard to start at a new school over and over and not have any friends, right? Have to make friends quickly so that you fit in and aren't eating lunch in the bathroom, because that did happen. It's really embarrassing. So I think those two things coupled together have really pushed me to a place of, no, it is too powerful to not be your authentic self. Like you have to be your authentic self. And it's painful when you're not, when you're always struggling and trying to be what somebody else wants you to be. It's not a happy life. It's hard to be and grow into something powerful and strong when you're pretending to be something else.
Mm-hmm. And so, well, first of all, thank you for sharing that. And a lot of times during, really influential periods of our lives, which is from 4 to 12, let's say, these feelings of not good enough and always kind of falling short of expectations, they're so emotional that they get almost burned into our DNA and our psyche, into our brain. And so you've clearly use these as rocket fuel rather than to your detriment. And so how did you convert or synthesize, your experience into rocket fuel? Because we were talking a little bit before about perspective. So you could look back on your childhood and it could have really held you down. But instead, I feel like you've had a different perspective and it's really provided some fuel to your greatness. So can you share a little bit about, how you were able to do that?
I think there's an innate part in me that, has to come out. Like this person inside of me has to be there somehow. And my whole childhood kind of stamping it down, right? My mother was very strong woman, owned her own business, raised 5 children, right? She was very into her religion, held several roles there, was on boards, like she was very busy. And I always kind of felt like I was in her shadow a little bit. When I got out of college and started my first job in tech, I used work as a place that I could be me, right? Nobody knew my family, where I came from, anything about me. So I could truly make that the place where I was authentic. And I think even in Utah, that's a hard thing to do. But like I said, I really felt like it was in there. And if it didn't come out, I would be a miserable person for the rest of my life. So,
Yeah. Okay. So in a sense, I'm wondering if you saw your mother as a strong figure, and maybe it also showed you what's possible on one hand, even if she might have fallen short on some other ways that she provided for you. And it seemed like work was your safe space where you could be authentic.
yeah, I mean, definitely. I would not be where I'm at if I hadn't had a mother that pushed and was strong and driven and showed me what having a career looks like, right?
Mhm.
That you can be a CEO of a company, you can sit on a board, and not, and be respected in your space. So she definitely did that. And, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for that kind of example. But she also had, the ability to make me feel very small,
Mhm.
instantly. Like I introduced her to one of my bosses at one time. I said, "This is my mom." And she said, "I have a name, Lindsay. I'm Sharon." And I was like, "Oh, okay, my bad." So some of those moments where you just kind of get that gut punch, and turning those into a space where I'm stronger because of that, right? I can separate myself from her inability to love unconditionally and or be proud of me, and to doesn't make me any less successful whether she is proud or not, right? I'm still proud of myself.
Mhm. But
Yeah.
I imagine that, well, 2 things. I imagine that took some time, and if we were to ask your 25-year-old self, that maybe you were still in the process. And also, at least in my experience, and whether, speaking or coaching or whatever in front of, with, hundreds of women, we sometimes struggle with not good enough. So if anyone listening resonates with your story or not feeling good enough, what is a piece of advice that you could give her that helped you?
um there's a book that I would say everyone should read,
Mhm.
and not just read, encompass, make it part of who you are every day. It's called The Four Agreements. It
Oh, yeah.
talks about um, always being true to your word. So don't speak ill, don't tell lies, right? Even misleading information, and especially to yourself, right? This more than anything pertains to you. Always do your very best. Some days that's better than other days, right? But if it's your very best, then I think you can always be proud of the work that you've done, right? Don't make assumptions. This one is huge, right?
Mm.
We make assumptions about everything all day long, from the reason somebody cut you off, on the road, to why somebody said some weird comment, right? Where we internalize those and make them, we assume that they're about us, or we assume something else is going to happen, which can cause stress and frustration and hurt feelings. The last one that I think is the very most critical is, don't take things personal, right? So hard to separate and easier said that, yeah, my mom said that and I don't care. Of course, to this day, it still is like a gut punch. But if I can separate and say, that's her issue, not mine. I'm not I'm not going to take those comments personal and internalize them. That's on her. And be the cause for change in that space versus be the victim, right?
Yeah, 100%. That I call that The Four Agreements is my January book, like reading it every January. So I'm 100% with you there. I don't know about you, but I need those agreements probably more than, I mean, I need the reminders more than once a year, but going through it.
Yeah, I wish I could tattoo it on me somehow so that I would never forget. It'd always be right there.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, so if you think about your journey as a woman in technology, you know, I imagine it hasn't always been easy. And so what has what has your mindset been that's allowed you to not just keep going, but to see the success that you've seen so far?
I think the mindset truly has been, you know, be focused on your core beliefs, right? I believe in showing up as my authentic self. I know it's imperative when building relationships that I'm authentic. I also know that I need to be the vulnerable person first. And it's through many pitfalls and, you know, wrong changes or directions in my career where, you know, I had to make hard choices and figure out what was right for me and what wasn't, right? Raising a daughter by myself, like I call it only parent, it's really hard. And to take a step back in my career because it was more important to me to be the mom she needs and to be home than to grow my career at that time is what I chose to do. I think it was the right choice. It got me to where I am today. And I think it built a stronger, more stable foundation for my daughter at the time. But there's always, you know, you're always going to run into obstacles or changes where you feel like, oh, I screwed up there. I did the wrong thing. But if I bring that authentic self, I know I'm making the right decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And so, well, it seems like, at least from what I've heard about, you know, your amazing daughter and clearly the impact that you're having in your career. And not only that, I had a unique window to your career because we were at Partner Tap's Fempire dinner. And when I was sitting with some of your colleagues and I heard from others the amazing impact that you're having and the impact that you're having on them. And so just wanted to share that. I always love to share when things like that happen, but it's a real testament to your leadership. And so Impartner is really lucky to have you, as you probably already know.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's just jump in then. It seems like in, you know, building authentic relationships, you know, as it relates to the bottom line is always important. But as we're heading into kind of maybe a potentially interesting economy, almost guaranteed interesting election. We won't get political at this particular moment, but it becomes even more important. So can you share a little bit about the importance of building authentic trust in relationships and how to boost your bottom line in these, particularly in these times?
Yeah. I think in relationships, right, especially in sales, you are immediately looked at as someone to not be trusted. My very first job, I guess I was still in college, but my first real sales role, I sold cars. I was a Volvo salesperson. That was the hardest job I've ever had. So many stereotypes as like a 22-year-old girl selling Volvos. Like, man, it was hard, right? All the guys in the office hated me. Men would come and be like, you don't know anything about cars, right? And I try to spew off these facts and prove to them that they were wrong, but I couldn't, right? They had this mindset. And so, you know, I decided I'm going to be so good that they can't ignore me, right? I'm going to be positive and strong and really make a difference. So they can't ignore me. And the only way for me to do that is to be 100% authentic, right? This is who I am. I care. I want to bring you into my fold, right? My network. So when I'm selling and working with my clients, and they know this, it's not because I'm trying to get ahead. It's not because I want to make a bunch of money off them. 1000%, it's because I'm helping them and, you know, exploring directions for them, and will always do what's best for them. And that in turn creates this feeling and relationship of trust that even if they go to another company or they have to move away from our solution for whatever reason, they still know I care. They can reach out to me about anything. They need a job. I'm there to help, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's really what makes selling in this economy much easier for me. And, you know, I view it as a positive, right? We need, more than ever, we need tools that help us show our value, tools that help us be successful, tools that help us do more with less. And, you know, so to me, this is a challenging time, but a really fun time.
Mm-hmm. And of course, as always, I love your outlook and how you choose to see things. And this can really, truly be an amazing opportunity for those who choose to lean into it. And when we initially started talking and kind of playing around with, well, what title of our interview would be most impactful, and you were saying building authentic trust to boost your bottom line, I was really just thinking about, oh, you must mean building authentic trust in that, in regards to a solution. Is the solution best for them? Is possibly another solution best for them? But it seems like you're really bringing that authenticity in, is not just in the sales relationship, but in the human interaction relationship, and letting them know that you don't just care about the solution, but you care about them as a human being.
I care more about them as a human being than I do the solution.
Mm-hmm. And so
100%.
let me ask you a follow-up question to that is, do you do that by example, or do you tell them that explicitly, or both?
That's a really good question. I think it's probably a combination of both. I don't think I would ever outright say I care. Actually, I would say I care more about you than I do about you buying this or doing this, right? I want you to be successful. So I think they know, you know, when we're engaging and talking, or, you know, I had a client recently that was coming on to our solution, and we'd been talking for months and months and months about this. And we did a bunch of work to stand the solution up for her so this could, you know, be happening. And there was some internal changes at the executive level, and the decision was to dissolve the company into this bigger, larger conglomerate that they're a part of. And the first thing she did is call me like, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, you've done all this work. And I was like, no, don't be sorry. Are you worried about your job? Let's start looking for a job, right? She knows without a doubt that I love her and will do anything I can to help her. It doesn't matter that that deal or opportunity isn't going to close. From my perspective, my boss might think differently, but from my perspective, it doesn't, because that's just going to come around when I need her, or she does need to do a solution again. So I think people know that I care more about them than I do the solution or even what I do every day.
Mhm. Yeah, so so important. And I just want to emphasize when you said it'll come around, because who knows? Again, it's perspective. You could get stuck in the negativity of losing a deal, or you could think about, how do I rise? How do I give even more? And perhaps now they're in a bigger organization. Maybe they'll need a bigger solution.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a big piece of, right, really having a positive outlook. Yes, total bummer, right? That would have made my quota this quarter, which would have been really nice. My boss would not be as stressed out, which, that stuff trickles down. But ultimately, if you're playing the long game, which is, I truly believe you have to always be playing the long game, that relationship that you built there will be a relationship forever. I tell my daughter all the time, like, the friends you have today in cheerleading and in school are friends that you'll have your entire life. Like, you're at that age that these could be relationships forever. And as I continue through adulthood, I feel like the relationships I build only benefit me and add value as I continue in my career. I love my job. I love that I get to work with people, all the time, every day, helping them be successful.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so amazing. And let's say that, I was going to say someone earlier in their career. It could be someone earlier in their career, or I imagine that you deepen relationships, with authenticity, but also you have to plant the new seeds that might be on top of the soil. So whether someone's earlier in their career, or if you kind of, I use the word pipeline, but if you have to fill your pipeline with new
Mhm.
relationships or start to seed new ones, what is the best way to get those kick started?
I agree. We need to, especially, I know none of us want to age, but it's an inevitable thing, right? And we need to help kind of bring up the younger generation, like the people that are coming in behind us, um, and be examples to them. And I really do try to, help them see their value, right? I think one of the colleagues that you were meeting with at the Vampire Dinner, which those are so much fun, such a strong powerhouse of women to lead. But one of the colleagues, wanted to go to that event, and her boss doesn't see the value, right? We live in Utah. We're subservient by culture here, and it's hard for women to find their voice a lot of times. So I sat down with her and said, let's define all of the things, all the positives that you're going to get out of this, all the actions you're going to take while you're at this event, so we can show what value that's actually going to bring. And even tying it to, showing her how to tie it to a dollar amount, because it's retention with certain clients, or helping to build a stronger relationship with those clients. And so she was able to go, right? Her boss then said, yes, okay, I give you approval to go travel to New York for Women of the Channel and enjoy all of that. She had no idea how to approach it. She didn't know what his thought process would be. And so we talked through that and talked through the benefits and how to deliver that information to him. So
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
those pieces in our life really help. And I want to encourage all women to stand up, use your voice, talk about what you feel and think about, situations or opportunities, because our voice matters. We need it.
Yeah, 100%. And also too, I'm glad that you gave her some guidance, because a lot of times we have to be aware of our what's called negotiation style. And so what you did was help her to understand her boss's negotiation style and talk to him in ROI.
Yes.
And so he understood it because it was in a language that he, understood. So that's super, super, important. And so when it comes to also building authentic relationships with customers, we're at least, in my business, I imagine in your business as well, we have to keep sowing new seeds. There's different life cycles. There's different life cycles in nature. As far as I'm looking out the window, there's an oak tree that's probably hundreds of years old, and then we're also planting some seeds for some spring vegetables, like if I can use that example. Do you have some advice on either for women or men, for example, that are just at the beginning of their journey and their, channel sales journey or sales journey, to start sowing those seeds so they can mature into authentic relationships that boost their bottom line? But also for established sales leaders, because I would imagine that it's important to keep filling that, pipeline too. So can you share maybe one or two things that would be important on sowing those new relationships and getting those kickstarted?
Yeah. I mean, channel's the greatest place to work if you enjoy building relationships, because that's all it is, right? And it's very small. Everyone knows everyone, right? And in my line, if our solution causes any, lots of frustration, or, they're not successful with it, they don't forget that. And they go to the next place and they remember. And when somebody says, hey, we're looking at a new PRM tool, what do you think of Impartner? They're going to say, no, I tried that. It was awful. I need to do this. Right. So making sure that we know and understand put ourselves in their shoes, essentially, right? That's first and foremost. When you're trying to build an authentic relationship, people want to know that you understand where they're at, what their position is. So try to put yourself in their shoes and be understanding, and then figure out what's going to help champion them. How can you make them successful so that they're recognized at work for doing something amazing, right? Show them how to show their value wherever they're at, because they're never going to forget that. Your reputation and the way you make people feel are the most important things. And so I think if you are putting yourself in their shoes and doing your best to champion them and make them strong in some way, you're going to have the most amazing relationships everywhere you go.
And well, I want to reiterate those two nuggets of wisdom that you just dropped right there. And that is really putting yourself in someone else's shoes. In my line of work, it's called strategic empathy. It's so important. And then also putting yourself ahead of them and finding out what is important to them to help them look good, feel good, that will just what's important to them. And that is so, so very valuable when it comes to boosting your bottom line, when it comes to boosting your friendships and all of your other relationships. Lindsay, thank you so much for sharing your story and all of your wisdom today. And I look forward to following your journey.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm really honored. So thank you very much.